Welcome to ESVN, the Emma Sports Vigeland Network show. My name is Emma Vigeland. Just a reminder, put on push notifications. Subscribe, youtube.com/ESVN show. Rate us 5 stars on podcast platforms. Give us some love in the comment section. Like the stream. Get it out into the algorithms and such. How are you today? My co-host Bradley and producer as well. That kind of deal. How you doing? Bradley Alsop is with us today.
I'm pretty good. I'm starting to kind of regret.
Jinxing me?
No, I don't regret that. I'm starting to kind of regret.
Here, I'm going up a little.
My team's advancing further into the playoffs. I kind of got a little bit more than I bargained for.
Well, I was chatting with one of my buddies, Ryan, over the weekend from high school. He was a big Rangers and New York sports fan as well, and he was kind of like, God. The Knicks game was on TV at this party we were at, and he was like, God, can the playoffs just be over for now? Because I know the Knicks aren't winning the championship, and part of me just wants them out because it's just hurting my heart.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely demoralizing to be getting just
out-coached like this.
Yeah, routinely trounced by the 8th seed, which I will say, just not to be too reflexively defensive here, but they're a good 8th seed. Okay.
Oh yeah, they're a good 8th seed, and we were only the 5th seed, so it doesn't even count that much. Okay, so leave it alone. But the Knicks have an opportunity to bounce back tonight. I'm looking forward to that. However, we should address this. Yes, the Rangers did get bounced from the playoffs. Bradley's hex had something to do with that, and the fact that just frankly, the Devils' speed is an elite trait right now in the NHL. And there are a lot of teams that decided that they were going to be built more on grit or a little bit of everything, which is what the Rangers were. But the Rangers did have a little bit of everything. They had the grit, they had the or the hard hitters, I guess. They have the defensive forwards, they have the skill guys, but they did not have the speed to match up with the Devils. And frankly, they did not have the offensive structure. So we'll get into that because the Rangers did fire their head coach, but just wanted to acknowledge that. Happy for Bradley. The Devils now are down just 1 game in the 7-game series against the Carolina Hurricanes. I could see that going to Game 7. So I'm a little... I mean, to be honest, I can't believe it was a week ago. I feel like I've aged and lived a lifetime since the Rangers have got unceremoniously shut out in Game 7 and looked like they weren't trying at all. But congratulations, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, it's bittersweet though, because then the Devils have. I was very excited that they ultimately won this series because as we've been saying, it was kind of a battle between, not only a team that I would say was a little bit more all in terms of the aspirations they had, but also by virtue of an influx of really ready-made capital P playoff talent that they acquired at the deadline, that being Tarasenko, who won a Stanley Cup with the Blues in 2019, and Patrick Kane, who obviously was one of the key cogs in 4 Stanley Cup runs for the Blackhawks. So I was surprised by that pedigree going up, obviously, against a team in the Devils that, just by virtue of their average age and how these players have come along, some of the better players, Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, still very young guys, kind of arriving ahead of schedule, but with the help of some veteran presence, like with Timo Meier acquired at the deadline and Andre
scored
Palat
his first playoff goal over the
season.
weekend.
Oh yeah, no, you're right. Who had been pretty quiet despite getting
he had. We'll get into hockey in a second. That was, of course. Yeah, that's the one. That's how Trouba fires up the team. And I was right about Patrick Kane. I was 100% right about not wanting that dude on my team. For not just the reasons I said, but the fact that he's cooked. I understand he's playing through injury, but
that's part of it, right?
The whole team was restructured around making this. They put him on power play 1 right away. Right away. We'll get into that in a bit. Let's start with the NBA here because I feel like that's where the spicier takes are right now. So, the Sun series versus the Nuggets getting a little spicy now that they've evened it. And two-time MVP Nikola Jokic was given a technical foul for pushing the new owner of the Suns. And I say pushing very without like a lot of factual basis behind it, because if you watch the video, this like billionaire oligarch loser was flopping.
Well,
basically.
you know that he was like the 12th man on the Michigan State Spartans when he was in college, right?
I did not know
he
that.
he was like a scrappy, smaller point guard from under Tom Izzo in the early 2000s, which
Wow.
which to me makes it even
And
funny.
now he's a vampire.
Which to me makes it even funnier that he absolutely sold that contact from Jokic, because clearly he was ready for it. That's a guy who knows, when I'm in that circumstance, I take the charge.
I'm gonna be pissed if Jokic actually gets suspended for this, because he totally flopped, Ishbia. He totally flopped.
No, I agree, and I also don't think, at least I don't necessarily think he will, because there was obviously some talk about, of course they're going to talk about it on the broadcast and things like that. What might happen to Jokic or whatever. But even Mat Ishbia, the man in question, tweeted out, he was like, I don't want anything to happen to him. Like, this is like heated playoff basketball. Like, the game will suffer if we penalize Jokic for this.
Well, that's good, because I liked that moment for a variety of reasons. But
it was absolutely hilarious. It was so funny. Like, he's holding onto the ball and he's not giving it back to the player, and then he flops. It was fucking amazing.
It was totally amazing. I mean, also Jokic was amazing offensively.
He was sensational.
53 points, right? But Booker was maybe even better, and we'll get into that in a second. But here is some sound that we have here. This is, I guess, right after the game, right here, Bradley, at the press conference. The Mike Malone was asked to respond to Jokic getting that technical, and I just appreciated this deeply. One, you can see the loss is still stinging, and now the series looks like it could be I don't know, maybe go to 7 games. Although I would say on paper the Nuggets should be winning this series, and based on how they played in the first 2 games, like it was the score made it look closer than it was. But now Suns roaring back. Here is Mike Malone responding.
I'm still not really sure what happened. I haven't seen a video of it. I think it's crazy that Nicola got technical foul in that situation. He's going to get the ball, and some fan is holding on to the ball like he wants to be a part of the game. Just give the ball up, man. You know what I mean? And you know they deemed Nicola doing something that was excessive, I guess, and they gave him a tech. But I still don't really understand it.
Think the fans, the owner of the Suns, made any difference?
I don't give a shit. I mean, I really don't care.
So the reporter there is clarifying, did you realize that that fan was the owner of the Suns? And Malone says, I don't give a shit there, which is just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, I want more of this. I want more smoke. I want to see James Dolan get drop kicked. Just kidding. Not really. Not really. but the point is just, you know, it's good for everybody. I respect honestly the fact that he's not using this to his advantage. Ishbia, however you say his last name. Ishbia, the new owner of the Suns. But he was holding on to the ball there, right? It would be super dirty if he was going to try to flex his power as a billionaire to try to get Jokic out of the series.
Oh, talk about labor discipline there.
Are you serious? I mean, come on, baby. But other thoughts on that game, like Devin Booker, that was a prolific scoring game, both in efficiency and in terms of, like, I don't know, probably his best game thus far in the playoffs, would you say, Bradley?
Yeah, so it's, I think if I'm remembering the number correctly, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker combined for 72 points in that game last night. It's been interesting to watch this it's fascinating to watch these two teams in contrast with the other two teams in the Western Conference playoffs who are still in contention, because every one of them has a pretty distinct and kind of fascinating style, and some of them are not completely orthodox within like the pace and space, kind of heterodoxy of NBA basketball, because the Suns for the most part are 3 to 4 guys of top tier, or at least like ostensibly top tier players. Booker, KD, Ayton, and Chris Paul, and their depth.
Chris Paul's probably out for next game.
Right, and he's not and Paul's not even playing at this time, and their depth falls off precipitously after that.
Yes.
So the what makes them run is just having 2 guys who could score at will without basically under any defensive coverage, under any scheme, any double team, triple team, whatever you put in front of them. 2 of just the smoothest, most capable scorers in the game. On the other hand, up against what I would say is actually a very well-rounded, deep team, but it's prone to inconsistency.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing with that, what is compelling is that despite that inconsistency, the one point, that focal point that remains is always Jokic. Like, Jokic very, very rarely
he has a gravitational pull.
Right, he very, very rarely, despite whatever is going on around him, has a bad game. No one on that floor, essentially, for the Nuggets could hit a basket consistently throughout, and he is the one who single-handedly kept them in when the Suns came roaring back and ultimately overtook the lead. But without his 51 points and his passing...
53, I think.
Excuse me, without his 53 points, his rebounding and his passing, they would have been nowhere close to a 5-point deficit here.
Yeah, the inconsistency, it makes no sense, but I guess it does make sense because honestly, despite their regular season success over the past few years, they are still relatively untested in
and Murray
format.
Right, exactly, and to your point there too, in terms of the lack of the kind of green nature of some of these guys. Jamal Murray has for the most part has been playing pretty fantastic basketball. He had an off night yesterday, but he also is in his first playoff environment since 3 years ago when he had a meteoric rise in the bubble playoffs. And Michael Porter Jr., for the most part, has missed sustained amounts of time in all of the postseason runs since he's been on the Nuggets. I think basically at least the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So he's also, I think, experiencing the consistent churn and run of being in 7-game playoff series back to back. So I think there's probably that, I imagine. But Jokic, to his great credit, has been playing, he's been trying on defense. He's been playing capably on defense. The rebounding, the assists have been phenomenal. And he's just able, by virtue of his sheer size and strength, and as well as his ability to sort of operate outside of structure and outside of, it's kind of weird to say this, but almost like linear speed, because his change of speed is so remarkable for a guy that big, because it does not appear as if he's changing speed, because it almost looks like it's from sort of quick to less quick, but because that matrix of him that he operates in, it's beguiling for faster athletes to try and defend him.
Well, you're how did this limb get to that space in that period of time?
At that arm angle?
You're just not used to it. I feel the same way watching Embiid.
Right. It's how is he able to sort of flick the ball in from almost back here and then turn his hand and a shot? Because even KD said this in his post-game presser. He was a lot of his shots don't look like they are going in.
Yeah.
They don't look like good shots when they come out of his hand. But it's not only that they go in, they hit the middle of the net.
Yeah.
They don't bounce around the rim a lot. He's literally somehow, while potentially looking like he's making minus shots at weird angles, they're perfect.
He looks like he shouldn't have great touch, but
Absolutely.
He does. He has incredible touch
one of the most,
and precision.
He's one of the most graceful athletes I've seen play basketball, and it's funny to say that because he's sort of a clunky looking runner. He doesn't seem like he would, but when he's in the post,
he's not super cut up.
No,
obviously.
He's but when he's in the post and with his footwork and with his hands, he's like a ballerina. It's nuts.
It's nuts, but that's an incredible series. We'll obviously keep you updated on that. Let's talk 76ers-Celtics, another controversial game. This is why the NBA playoffs, they really just know how to bring the drama.
Oh, this was I mean, as we I think alluded to this in the title to a degree. I feel like this is maybe the best basketball in the playoffs that we've seen James Harden participate in. Which
Good
is
job, James Harden.
Which is insane to say that.
Defying the narrative
Totally.
about who you are as a postseason performer.
To especially in year 14.
Oh my God!
It's
and he's made the playoffs every year of his
Yeah.
career. Is that not, or for 14 years or something like that? Some ridiculous amount. He's always on playoff teams.
I think it's possible.
It might be.
Maybe not his first year on the Thunder, but definitely, I think almost every year on the Thunder, every year on the Rockets, every year on the Nets, and now every year in Philly.
It's amazing. I mean, and I don't know what's unlocked him at this point. I mean, the Celtics did a decent job kind of limiting Embiid, but that caused Harden to go off. That stat line is insane. What is it here? 42 points, 16 of 23 shooting from the field is
surgically accurate shooting.
That's incredible. And he was good from I don't have it in front of me right now, but he was good from behind the arc as well in general, which is why you have that higher point total too, on 16.
And what's
impressive
about, I was reading this in I was as we've discussed, obviously my defector fandom.
Yes.
Dan McQuaid, who is a Philly native and has been at some of these games, wrote a gamer about this, and Doc Rivers apparently said something, or him and Harden said something about how the overtime game winner was a catch and shoot three, which for most of his career Harden traditionally shied away from taking.
Right.
He's very much a pull-up, dribble, crossover.
We can all picture him getting low and dribbling before stepping back for a three.
Either trying to step back and get separation for a three or draw contact. Like, that's basically Harden's game. And I think had been working on a catch and shoot three, and it was perfect. It was a perfect situation for it because Harden inbounded the ball, went to the corner. And it was kind of baffling, the decision that Jaylen Brown made, because, I mean, it makes sense because, of course, Embiid has the gravity that if he's at the rim, you kind of basically know that you want to stay in front of him. But the Celtics needed a three to get the lead. If Embiid had gotten a layup, the Celtics would have been still in front.
Yeah.
So Tatum was on Embiid, and kind of almost a tad too late, Brown rotated back to the paint to double Embiid, and Embiid immediately rocketed it to Harden, and Harden made that catch and shoot three. So it was a bit of a defensive mishap from the Celtics, which is obviously very rare in its own right, but it's also Harden actually taking and making a shot he doesn't always take and make or attempt.
And like, now that we've kind of given Harden his flowers, let's talk a bit about Mazzulla and the decision there to not call a timeout, not once but twice, in game-winning situations. Both at the end of the fourth quarter when they were headed to overtime, I believe, right? That was two times. It's all blurring together in my mind, but certainly at the end of overtime, just letting his guys play. Now, you're not allowing the Sixers to get their defensive guys in. There's an advantage in that way. But Mazzulla has been struggling to live up to, like, I don't know, past expectations, especially since Udoka had the Celtics playing at such a high level.
And on his first year on the job as well.
And so the fact that it didn't work, and they went to Marcus Smart not just in overtime for that shot, but at the end of regulation.
Yeah, both times he took the three to end regulation and overtime. The first time when it fails and you head to overtime, that's probably your indicator as a coach that maybe you need to draw something up on the whiteboard or like on the clipboard right there. Because I just felt like that was a bizarre choice to let them just play with the game on the line when the Celtics could have gone up 3-1 heading back to Boston, heading back to the Garden. That would have been really difficult for the 76ers to come back from. And so, like, you got to just take a minute, dude. Yeah, and also as you said, like, especially in the playoffs, like, I think it's a paradox because I think some things obviously become more complex when you are playing one team over and over. You have to devise counterattacks and counterpunches, and also counterattacks to their counterattacks and counterpunches to their counterpunches. But also, with that being said, there are some simplicities that do win out, which is basically, like, in a circumstance like that, get the ball to your best player. Marcus Smart has made clutch shots before. He's not a terrible shooter, but you have Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for a reason. Draw something up for them. Get them the ball and let them go to work.
Totally. And if you want to get Smart Smart gets that look at the end of regulation, you try to find an alternative vision for the game being on the line in overtime. That was just that was an example of what Celtics fans have been upset about, which is like the lack of seeming X's and O's hands-on coaching strategy from Missoula this whole postseason, and really like the Celtics talent is doing a little bit too much here, is what I think from the outside, as opposed to them kind of being a little bit more strategic. I'm not sure, but that's
there have just been a few times where it's really rare, because this team very rarely makes mistakes, but they've made them in costly scenarios.
And I want to be clear too that they made great adjustments in games 2 and 3 to limit Harden, so that was good coaching.
Yeah, totally.
But it just,
and Horford on Embiid has been a good matchup overall.
For sure,
that's been
sure.
Like the right way to play it.
But it just has felt like there's been some gaps. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, and honestly, sometimes gaps like that, minor as they may be, are enough to make, 3-1 as compared to 2-2, same amount of games, very different context going into game 5.
Oh my gosh, very different context. Yes. And I don't know. Embiid's been struggling a little bit, probably because he has some injuries,
But I think this is exactly the time and exactly the circumstance where, because Embiid is not fully himself due to, the treads on the tires and him being not 100% health-wise, these are the moments where, of course, the Sixers, this is why they traded for James Harden, and this is also why they drafted Tyrese Maxey. This is why they need to get the most out of Tobias Harris on both ends of the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they need these guys to step up and be the best versions of themselves to account for Embiid being a little hobbled, being a little worse for wear out there.
Yep. I saw Michael Parsons is wearing a Tyrese Maxey jersey.
Oh yeah. He was at the game. Lil Baby was at the game. James Harden's bestie, Lil Baby.
Where's Michael? Is Michael Parsons from Pennsylvania?
Yeah, I guess he is. He
did go to Penn State.
I actually didn't realize myself.
Yeah.
And Devontae Smith was there too, but I don't think he's just obviously, I think, repping his team.
Well, I mean, man, with both the Lakers and the Knicks still this far in the postseason, I mean, the stars in the NBA courtside have been like astronomical, right? When you're watching these games, so many celebrities coming out to see the Knicks and the Lakers.
I was just gonna say exactly, like both Knicks, Lakers, like.
Well, Lakers usually have that market cornered, but the Knicks, like, hey baby.
Oh yeah, there were a lot the last few games.
Aaron Rodgers twice last 2 home Knick games against the Heat, and
Noah Schnapp, who plays Will Byers in Stranger Things, is apparently a huge Knicks fan. Well, he was at the Knicks Nets game I was at in March, and he's been at most playoff games.
Last year, the MSG hype man for the Rangers was the curly-haired kid from Stranger Things. He's a big fan.
Finn Wolfhard?
Yeah, I mean, no. The kid,
Gaten Matarazzo?
Yeah. I mean, this year they upgraded to Liam Neeson, but that didn't work out that well for them. I was like, that's much better, but
not enough.
No one's getting hyped up from like
for Dustin from Stranger Things.
Dustin for I get it. He likes the team, but Jesus. All right, and yeah, the Knicks play tonight. I don't really have that much. They got smoked on Saturday.
It's tough sledding, right?
Yeah,
now.
we already talked about it. We'll reassess in a little bit.
But the only thing I have to say is just this is where coaching really matters, and where actually developing sound, as I was saying, sound adjustments to what's happening in front of you is like worthwhile. And the Knicks have just not been able to adjust to the swarm that is the Heat defense, and
Julius Randle's not playing well.
And they just have nothing. Like they don't have enough offensive firepower in response to Jimmy Butler basically being able to make anything from wherever he is on the floor, from whatever, even if he's being quadruple teamed, basically. So just like everyone seems a step slow. No one's shooting particularly well. Quickly's not healthy. Quickly might miss
Quickly's
game 4.
Gonna be out tonight.
Like it's a lot of tough circumstances coalescing.
The Knicks don't have enough good shooting. I mean, that was the fact that they were able to be so strong defensively against the Cavs and still win. Like, I mean, look at the other point totals in other games, and the Knicks are consistently towards the bottom.
Totally.
It's just they need more shooting, and Randall is not stepping up and being like a star in that same way. You know, he'll still get his points, but it's just not changing the game in the way it should.
Because if for example, if Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle are sort of getting neutralized in terms of their like post up or driving game, their kickouts have to like matter.
Yeah.
And when they're kicking out to RJ Barrett and he's bricking a three, or kicking out to Josh Hart, who's obviously shooting is not his strength.
He's his 3-point. My boyfriend pointed out to me. He was like, "Look at Josh Hart's 3-point form. It's like crazy that it's so bad.
Yeah, it's
still
wild.
At this point."
And so that I think is everyone seems to step slow, and also when they have to kind of adjust to drive and kick, the kick is a problem.
Yeah.
Because they just don't have enough people to actually shoot the ball.
Well, I mean, so it is the roster, but I will say this: like, Spoelstra is probably the best coach in the NBA. Are we gonna just go there and just say that? I mean, Budenholzer's gone, thank God. Like, but
I agree.
But he exposed him completely in the first round.
That and I agree, because obviously the legacy is from Popovich, of course, but Popovich also has these last few years. I don't even think it's his fault. Just his team is basically was stripped for parts after everybody left.
Totally.
Like, they're not they're barely fielding like a full NBA roster. But the difference there is that with the Heat is like basically everybody that they've signed or drafted, regardless of their positioning, regardless of where they've come from, they've been able to just sort of like filter in and plug in to adapt to and absorb and embrace their style. Like, Cody Zeller is making high-level reads, high-level cuts, and giving them plus minutes. Like, that's astonishing.
It's incredible.
He was
the most
bad
out
on the
of
Hornets.
Popovich's system, of course, elite, but again, like every coach has a period of time where they are like these elite coaches, right? Where it seems like they'll never stop being incredible and winning over the locker room. And like the problem for Popovich right now is that the Spurs are rebuilding.
Right.
But like with another coach, I don't think that there's any shot that the Heat even make it out of the first round. I mean, Spoelstra's adjustments have been absolutely incredible. He gets the most out of every guy on that team.
If this team was coached by either like Tom Thibodeau or someone like Brian Shaw, like just like a random like kind of like middling coach, they'd be bad.
And
they'd be bad. Jimmy Butler would hate the coach and also would want to not be on the team anymore.
Well, that's the problem with Thibodeau is he ranks pretty low in terms of like what players would want to play for him. They did that survey recently.
And Butler and Tibbs seem to have a great relationship to the point where I'm almost like, and this is a little tinfoil hat W fan caller Knicks conspiracy hour here, but was Tibbs telling the guys like not to try and force switches onto Jimmy onto one-on-one matchups? Because
no, I think Jimmy just knows exactly what Tibbs is trying to do.
But Jimmy,
Jimmy is the quintessential Thibodeau player.
Yeah, no, I guess I agree, but I guess what I'm saying is when Jimmy kind of landed roughly on his ankle and was like basically hobbling on one leg, he was sort of just standing in the corner. And this, I think, was either game 1 or 2, waiting for someone to be, if he needed to hit a catch and shoot 3 or whatever. But like no one was trying to get matchups with him on the offensive end for the Knicks.
Yeah,
they're basically playing 4-on-5 and they didn't even exploit it. They were just going. They instead were going into Kyle Lowry or Kevin Love, who are one, they were able-bodied at the time, and two, some of the savviest defenders in the league. They were picking their pocket.
It
was like even that is an example. I think to your point that just like they're being outcoached because not even that simple adjustment to just capitalize intellectually on them having an injured player who has to play, given their rotation.
There seems to have been very little made as you say, like in terms of adjustments on the Knicks end to account for that.
Right.
And yeah, it just Spoelstra, you can't say enough good stuff about him. Seems like the players love him. Seems like he's one of the few NBA coaches where like you can account for, I don't know how many, 10 extra wins just for a coach alone. That is in and of itself so impressive. So that's really all I have to say. And just like, I mean, it's very rare to have a coach this longly tenured in one organization, and he's proven that it was not, Wade and LeBron carrying him to greatness. This was Spoelstra. It was.
Yeah, and I think and it's also just an amazing story for him. Just to give people an idea if they don't know. So I mean, because Spoelstra also, the funny thing about him is that the man doesn't appear as if he ages at all.
Yeah.
He's like in his early 50s, and he started out with the Heat under Pat Riley as essentially like a graduate assistant or video coordinator, and worked his way. He's only been with the Heat, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He started at the Heat, I think, when he was like 29 in 1999, and then became the coach, I think, in 2007 or 8 or 2006, maybe. Right after the Heat won the championship with Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal. And has been there ever since as their head coach. Like, he's sort of the Popovich like heir apparent in terms of longevity and coaching.
I should say
savvy.
Steve Kerr is also, up there.
Oh, of course. But Kerr has had a little bit of more of like a varied career. He was in broadcasting, did a little front office stuff as well.
No, but to put
but
it,
but
right.
in terms of, I would say, kind of like prolific, almost like Belichickian level coaching
in the
tenures.
NBA.
Yeah, it's just amazing. And even with this team, it's just amazing to behold. Like, as much as it frustrates me that the Knicks are losing to this team, I can only tip my hat to these guys.
Absolutely.
No one grinds harder. Like, truly no one grinds harder.
I guess we just have I want to talk about this Dillon Brooks situation really quickly. We've touched on all of the NBA. Did we talk about the Lakers? Oh, we did not talk about Lakers Warriors really quickly. I mean, looks like the Lakers might actually, well, God, why do I do this? I'm falling into the trap of counting out the Warriors. But the fact that they took one in San Francisco,
that was huge. That was crucial.
I mean,
they had to get one in Oracle if they wanted to even have a shot.
Anthony Davis locked in on defense in the second half of that game, and that changed everything. And then it just got completely out of hand for the Warriors, who were sloppy, and Draymond got into foul trouble again.
And they need that's the important thing that the Lakers, the important few things that the Lakers, it seems abundantly clear they need to beat the Warriors is for Anthony Davis to play like peak Anthony Davis and not like, the Jekyll and Hyde mid Anthony Davis that comes out basically every other game where he like can't be physically dominant despite being one of the most physically imposing players in the league. They need all world Anthony Davis, which showed out in game 1 and showed up in
he's kind of up to the challenge somewhat with Draymond because of how poorly Draymond plays like on the offensive side of the ball
because
maybe they start Jordan Poole as an adjustment. I don't know.
But because by virtue of his size alone and his physicality alone, the Warriors, because they don't have anyone really on their team that can accommodate Davis's size, the foul line, the free throw discrepancy becomes immense. In the sense that the Warriors can't help but foul AD because he's bigger than them, and more physically imposing, and the Lakers, to their great credit, despite even all of the misgivings about them, have, for the most part, throughout even the whole season, roster adjustments aside, been a good defensive team. They have a sound half-court defense. So, if they are able, if Davis is able to get into the paint and do what he does best and impose his will, that lets the Lakers get back on defense and set their defense as opposed to running in transition with the Warriors, which is a death sentence any way you slice it.
Yeah.
So I think basically what they need to do is keep getting fouled. AD needs to play supernova and get set into half court, and they have a formula to beat the Warriors. But the Warriors also know that, and they have tricks up their sleeves, I think, to going forward to try and neutralize that. It's really just a matter of who can sort of move their pieces across the chessboard more quickly.
Yeah. We shall see.
It's fun though. I'm really impressed with the Lakers being up to the task, because I was a little worried that the Warriors would sort of just buzzsaw them, but it actually does seem more evenly matched than I anticipated.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, this is a story not related to the playoffs, but sort of, I guess. This Dillon Brooks thing. Let's play this clip when we get If you don't mind loading that up, Bradley. So Dillon Brooks not returning to the Memphis Grizzlies under any circumstances. Now, I'll just say this. I do not like Dillon Brooks. I think he's a clown. I think that the way that he stepped to LeBron was embarrassing for him, and it didn't end well for him. So, like, I got no love in my heart for Dillon Brooks. I'm not a member of the Dillon Brooks fan club, but I am, at least I try to be, a pro player consumer of sports. And I was bummed out and, like, kind of grossed out, I should say, to see Shams from The Athletic reporting on how the Grizzlies have told Brooks that he will, quote, not be brought back under any circumstances. And for people that don't maybe follow sports as closely, when those kinds of PR statements get sent out to either Woj or Shams, like the two biggest reporters in the NBA who are breaking news, that's very deliberate usage of language. And I actually, Kendrick Perkins, decent take here, responded to that statement, which Brooks's agent has slammed. But he kind of crystallized a lot of what I thought about them putting that out there for a player that had been with them for quite a while.
So Kendrick Perkins, you've been a big supporter of the Grizzlies. Where do you stand on their move to not bring back Dillon Brooks?
Well, I mean, I expected them not to, but again, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. And I don't think it's funny, to be honest, on how the Grizzlies are handling this situation for us, Dillon Brooks. It's one thing for us to clown and joke about him throughout the course of the series. Yep. But when you come back and you say that you're not going to bring him back throughout, no matter the circumstances, like zero chances, like this guy's up for a contract. This guy spent 6 years in your organization, and a couple of those years he was actually great for you. So at the end of the day, my thing is when it comes down to affecting the livelihood, and it's also a reflection of your organization, this is not the way you want to be trending. If you're trying to be eye candy and attract guys to come in and play alongside Jared Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant, you don't want them to feel like, oh, this is how they did Dillon Brooks, because that's how I would look at it. And it's just very disturbing to me that they would handle this situation like this. If they didn't want to sign them, so what? Don't sign them. But you don't have to put it out there like that, like he committed a damn crime or something, or some off-the-court distractions, because he was none of that. And the kid played with heart and passion every single night. No matter what he shot from the field, he bought his game every single night when it came down to competing between those lines.
Yeah, of course.
It's gratuitous. I mean, that is exactly the right point and the right tone there struck by Perkins. I have no problem with the Memphis Grizzlies saying that we don't want Dillon Brooks to be a part of our future. This is a fairly unprecedented thing for a team to come out and say, under any circumstances, we're not bringing back a player who has not committed a crime, didn't, post an anti-Semitic film on an Instagram story and get defined about it. I'm pretty sure Dillon Brooks got vaccinated, if I'm not mistaken. This is an organization, they didn't draft him technically, right? It was like one of those, the traded for the pick right after it happened. But since he was a rookie, has been with the organization. And I just don't think that's how you do someone. Because if you aren't going to bring him back, that's fine. As Perkins said there, that's totally fine.
And there are ample reasons that we could infer as to why you wouldn't do such a thing.
Why you're not bringing him back.
We understand.
Yes, everyone did. He acted ridiculous.
And he didn't play well when he was on the floor. He was he was frigid from beyond the arc, and he was taking a lot of those shots that were not going in. And LeBron was kind of clowning him after Brooks said at one point in the season, if LeBron drives left, he's not going to be able to get by me. And lo and behold, LeBron did drive left and got by him.
But so
all that to be
all
said,
that's being said, I am totally against one employer attempting to kind of poison the well for another one of their players that they've had since he was a rookie, and his bargaining power in the very limited marketplace that is the National Basketball Association going forward. That supporting this kind of statement and this attempt to make Brooks like get less money from a different team when he ends up getting signed is gratuitous, it's needless, and I doubt Dillon Brooks has zero friends in the NBA. I mean, he again, not my favorite kind of guy, but I'm sure he has some friends, and the way that the Grizzlies have handled certain off the court situations this season, but this most of all is going to give friends of Brooks, other NBA players pause, as Perkins said right there. I don't want to go to a team that's going to do me dirty in the press and try to make sure I get much less money at my next employer. Just let me go. This kind of statement is only appropriate when the player in question has done something illegal, wrong, gotten arrested, and like distancing yourself from them. But I've not seen this happen really for somebody who's just essentially a trash talker. It's not cool. And they walked it back a little bit, I should say, the Grizzlies. But either way, they knew what they were doing. And I'm not in favor of an employer taking anti-worker actions. That's what this is. Basketball players are workers, just like everybody else. They make more, but the same analysis applies in these very narrow situations. You always support the worker unless it's incredibly egregious for some of the reasons examples I just gave in these kinds of situations.
Yeah, I think like on one hand, of course, it's easy. He's an easy, like, also just quite, like, frankly, we've said this already, but he is an easy player to dislike. He's performative. He's a little bit of a toady, and what I mean by that is like he likes to be the center of the conversation, and he likes to be kind of a flamethrower when things are going well for him, and he prefers to recede when things are not. Like when he got torched in the games that they lost, he left and incurred a fine without speaking to media. He blamed the media for saying that they were making him a villain, when in a literal profile with GQ earlier in the season he said, "I want to be the villain." Like he's infuriating. Like he's a frustrating player. He's hard to like. All of that being said, totally. Well, like, I completely understand stepping to LeBron without having any really accolades to show for it. Very annoying behavior. Totally get it. Especially as a guy who loves LeBron, annoying behavior. But as you said, you can think all that, you can do all of that, and as Perk said, you can feel all of that way in the front office and in the ownership group or whatever. Even Taylor Jenkins, their coach, can feel that way. You don't have to make it seem like he's radioactive before you do so.
I agree.
And if anything, it's also an easy. It's also, I was saying this to you before the show, but he's an easy scapegoat too. I don't necessarily think his on-court play was as distracting or as detrimental necessarily for the team as John Morant's constant off-court issues, which I also think, of course, were probably overblown by the media. It's easy to do so. He might have gotten a little bit of the Allen Iverson treatment, no question.
Yeah.
But he did make those choices. It was a distraction with it regardless. Not Dillon Brooks' fault that Brandon Clark and Steven Adams were both out of the playoffs, and not his fault that Taylor Jenkins put him out there every night.
Nope.
If he was playing so badly, then they could have benched him, and they didn't. So there's a lot of blame to go around for the Lakers winning that series and over the Grizzlies, and it's not just Dillon Brooks.
But that's you just hit on it, and that's it. This is the organization trying to look for an easy out for being a 2 seed and losing in the postseason. They're finding a scapegoat, and that's not cool because the whole team failed in that situation, and they were so injured that it was really difficult for them to overcome it. But let's not pin your organizational failures on one guy, especially a guy that, yeah, he isn't going to get that big of a contract because of that performance. It's piling on. It's completely unnecessary. Let's read some IMs and then we'll talk NHL. 2 kids in a trench coat. So if it wasn't the Suns' new owner who grabbed the ball, just a fan, they would have been banned from future games. Jokic deserved the tech for pushing him, but it can't be a suspension with all the gambling tied to the league. Yes, I totally agree. Dummy, do you watch Showtime HBO program about the Lakers? If so, do you like it? I'm not subscribed to Showtime, and I'm subscribed to too many streaming services at this point, so I can't justify paying for it.
I have it. I have Showtime because I love Yellow Jackets, the show. But I have not watched Winning. This was about Winning Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to watch it. I've heard it's like very oddly. The cinematography is almost like jarringly weird. So I'm not sure if you've had the same experience with that. But the guy they got to play Magic looks a lot like Magic.
Really?
Yeah, I'm very impressed. Like he looks a lot like young Magic Johnson.
I don't love. Yeah, sometimes when like I know what these people look like, and then I have to believe that is, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean because John C. Reilly is Jerry Buss, which is wild to see.
Hilarious.
But also
I like John C. Reilly,
but also not sure if you know this little inside drama.
We are back. We are back. Making sure you guys can hear me. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, good. All right. Sorry about that. If you guys are listening on the podcast, you might have heard a quick cut. We had an issue with our teleconferencing software for a second. So now we are back, but appreciate that. We were near the end of wrapping up the NBA talk anyway, so whew,
Little ghost in the machine.
a little bit. Making sure before we move on that everyone can hear us. Yes. Okay, great. They hear us. Good.
Yeah, but it's coming through OBS as well, so that's good. That's fortunate.
All right. Well, we kind of had wrapped up the Dillon Brooks talk anyway, so there you go.
Yeah, no, it seemed that we had at least a little bit of a, a button there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it could have happened at the worst
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
All right, we'll talk NHL playoffs. I'm going to talk Gallant getting fired, and then we're going to wrap up the show. Well, let's just talk. We'll get the Devil stuff out of the way here, Bradley.
Yeah.
How did you feel about the first two games, and then how did you feel about Jack Hughes absolutely dominating in Game 3? Nico Hischier, also, he's an elite center at this point in the league, and 2 goals and 2 assists for Jack Hughes. Timo Meier finally got on the board. How are you feeling now?
Well, I was a little nervous because it was almost the exact same start that the Devils had, in the first. It was interesting. It was like basically literally games 1 and 2 against the Rangers, 5-1, 5-1. Games 1 and 2 against the Hurricanes, 5-1 and 6-1. So like they came out again pretty flat, and they almost, I think, in the sense that perhaps they were sort of like, the lights are bright. They're playing against a Hurricanes team that's won at least 1 playoff series in the last 5 seasons. Mm-hmm. So like this is a seasoned team, a well-coached team, and a team that pushes pace also. That's their MO as well. Their MO is keeping the puck outside of their zone and maximizing as many chances as humanly possible. They don't necessarily have a whole lot of like brand name star power, but they have enough. Every player knows exactly what they're doing out there.
They have an elite defensive system.
Exactly. It's just like every cog in there is working at full strength base. So in order to,
but when it breaks down like we saw with 8 goals.
And that's exactly what I think that the difference was, is that the Devils were able to put on pressure that they weren't able to get to earlier, and also, I mean, listen, Vanacek still even gave up 4 goals. So, like, it's not as if it was a fully pristine defensive or goaltending performance, but there was enough offensive firepower to at least match it at this game, double that. And so that to me, at least, I feel good that they were able to get a win, so that they weren't, going into the next game down 3-0. That would have been probably the nail in the coffin, for them proverbially. So a
series doesn't start till a team loses on the road.
Exactly.
No.
Or team wins on the road. Excuse me. Yeah, yeah. So that was I was just happy to at least see that get the Devils getting some pucks into the net finally, and also that they were figuring out a way to stay in the Canes zone and get close enough, even if they were just kind of battling in front of the goalie. That's how a lot of those goals came, and I think they just really need to be amping up that intensity and that pressure and getting as close as they can, because the Canes, I think, are very, very willing and able to eat up space. Like, They're not going to let them have a lot of, like, kind of open shots from the circles. They're going to have to get in close and try and nudge some in and not let them frenzy their way back over, because they are really amazing at just getting the puck back into the Devil's zone and just keeping it there and making it strenuous for the weakest units for them.
Absolutely.
Which is the inconsistency in goal and the defense.
But that core of Hischier and Hughes is going to be elite for a long time.
Oh, and it's amazing. It's also, as I was saying before, it's just been really awesome to see Hischier come into his own, because it's not with he was the first overall pick, and and now he's a captain, and he's kind of come into his own as a player. He's become more decisive. He's
incredible defender too.
Totally. He's going to be kind of the one of the key aspects of like the spine of the Devils team that they will need going forward for hopefully, hopefully years to come.
This core of I mean, I'm not trying to hype you up too much, but Hughes and Heischer, just think about what that's going to look like for years to come in terms of like two centers on your team that that you have to worry about setting up all of these plays for the top two lines whenever they're on the ice together and they're not on the power play. I hesitate to say this, but it's a little bit of shades of Crosby and Malkin, two elite centers, drafted by the same team.
Say it ain't so.
Yeah.
That would be unbelievable to even get half or even a quarter, 3/4 of the production of those guys, and not for nothing the Stanley Cup. So
oh yeah, three
wouldn't
times.
Wouldn't that be nice?
That would be nice. I mean, you've already lived through multiple Stanley Cups. I was 1 month old the last time the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. Anyway, not enough about me. So I cannot believe how the Leafs are just like rolling over and dying right now. They're down 3-0 against the Florida Panthers, and like that's not to take away anything from the Florida Panthers. They are the classic example of a team that has been playing playoff hockey for longer than the cozy higher seeds that they are defeating. Like, I mean, the Bruins, if you can topple the Bruins, they must think we can beat anybody. Certainly the Maple Leafs, who had been locked into their first round matchup against the Lightning, the banged up Tampa Bay Lightning, for months at that point. So they were just coasting. The Leafs ended up closing it out, but it's like they're acting like, okay, that was our Stanley Cup. We got out of the first round for the first time since the Bush administration.
I think that might be, we do talk about some of these almost like cosmic or metaphysical like aspects of the playoffs, and I almost wonder if there's a bit of a hangover from the Leafs doing something that they had not been able to do before for so long, to the point where that shock is almost like not letting up in terms of them now having to turn around and, oh my God, we have more games to play.
Yeah.
We haven't had more games to play in 19 years.
And Matthew Tkachuk is like playing way better than Austin Matthews. I mean,
they're getting stifled. Even the big Mitch Marner and Matthews are like the pressure and the press that this Florida Panthers team plays and the intensity with which they do it is unbelievable.
And
it's amazing.
I mean, that's why Tkachuk is just such an exciting player to watch, is that he has this incredible offensive skill, but he plays with like an old school grit and tenacity, and
he's willing to do anything.
Scrappiness.
Yeah, he's willing to do anything to get the puck.
Oh my God, he's only 25 years old.
Yeah, right, he's a star.
Panthers he's a top 5 player in the NHL.
He's amazing,
no question.
And I want to speak.
I would take him. All things equal, I would take him over Austin Matthews 100%.
Well, because the thing is, I was reading today. I was just looking at some of the recaps from did they play Saturday? I think they played Saturday. I don't think they didn't play yesterday, did they?
It's all blurring together.
Yeah,
for me.
I don't remember. But last game when Forsling, I think Gustav Forsling, the goal
they played yesterday.
Oh, it was yesterday. So the game
inexplicably they put 3 games on yesterday.
For Forsling's goal in regulation, I was just struck by a few things watching that goal, which is that one, the Leafs had a few chances to clear against the Panthers defense, and Marner got turned around by eventual Panthers hero it's Sam. I think his name is it Sam Bennett? I think it might have 2 Sams.
No, you're thinking of Sam Bennett.
Yeah, Sam Bennett, and then which Marner could not get out of the zone. Then Marner passes to Matthews, and Eetu Luosterainen is his name. He's one of your countrymen. He's a Finn.
Luosterainen, yeah.
Yeah. He just totally just nabbed the puck from Matthews, gets it back to Forsling, and Forsling scores. I'm like, Austin Matthews, like, you're supposed to be one of the best players in the league. Like skate past this guy. Yeah. Get past this guy. How are you just letting him pick your pocket and then pass to the circle and slap one home? Like, it was like these guys just play with an intensity and a ferocity and a tenacity.
I'm reminded of that Adam Fox play against the Devils. It's like
exactly
you're supposed to be a star here.
And you almost like they are in the sense that, to your point there, it's almost like these guys are almost resting on their laurels a little bit, whereas a team that's hungrier and is not maybe necessarily expecting to be there as much is not taking any plays off.
No.
Is not there's no hangover for them because the Panthers weren't expecting to get past the President's Trophy winner. They're here and they're hungry and they're willing to fight on every play and put a stick out on every puck. They're not giving these guys any free chances. And I just want to give a shout out to one of my, besides this guy Itu Lustrain, another great name, but Anthony Duclair on the Panthers is a phenomenal defenseman.
I know the Rangers traded him, or no, he's not a defenseman. He's a forward.
Oh, sorry, forward. He just like, I'm just so impressed by his ability to disrupt plays and just and make the right move, make the right pass. Basically every time he gets the puck in his stick. He's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
And he's
and he bounced around the league, and he was a free agent for a long period of time before he ended up signing with the Florida Panthers after kind of leaving the Senators. And people were like, what is this about? I mean, why is this player still on the market? He ended up having to sign a 1-year prove-it deal in 2020 with the Panthers. Then he got a contract extension as well, but he's still underpaid.
Which is crazy to me because obviously he's not doing a lot of goal scoring, obviously, but he's kind of the conduit to a lot of big plays for them. A lot of the goals that when I'm watching either highlights or watching the Panthers play is like he's the first pass to the assist, or like the second pass, second valve to a goal scoring opportunity for the Panthers. So they just have a lot of these guys where they are just smart hockey players making the right choice and funneling it to the best players on the team, funneling it to Tkachuk, funneling it to Carter Verhaeghe, funneling it to Alexander Barkov. Like it's really been amazing and super, super exciting to watch them play, because I love when an underdog team, when a lower seeded team shows out like this.
Me too.
And it happens way more in the NHL. And also, what's been interesting too is home ice has basically not been an advantage this year.
No.
Home teams have been playing very poorly. So that's also would have been a nice thing that not even necessarily home turf has been an equalizer. Like every game has sort of been kind of like a variable going into it, regardless of home field and home ice advantage.
You're seeing that in some ways across sports. Basketball a little bit still less so, but this was the first time, one of the most even years in the NFL in terms of road versus home teams. I think teams are getting a lot more used to setting up their practices and their schedule in a way that's as favorable as possible for road trips. Quick, before I get into this Gallant story, Kraken go up 2-1. Analytics-based teams doing well in the playoffs. Just putting that out there. The Kraken are at the forefront of that. And just really exciting to see them not just beat the defending Stanley Cup champions, but now go up against the Stars, who were one of the more consistent Western teams this whole NHL season.
And who have like star power.
Oh, yeah.
Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Jason Robertson.
Yeah, right.
And Pavelski. And
Pavelski's been playing out of his mind.
Who had a 4-goal game and they lost.
Yeah, and Jake Ottinger, I mean, let's be real here. He has not had the best playoffs, despite being on the short list for one of the 5 best goaltenders in the league. And
what I've been so impressed by is, yes, they've been a few high-scoring games, but like credit to Philip Grubauer, who has been he's kind of been the picture, besides maybe Bobrovsky, has kind of been a picture of like goalie inconsistency.
Yeah.
Like a guy who either can really give you top tier performances or just totally flame out. And he's been playing really well.
Well.
And another guy who I love also for name quality as well as play quality on the Kraken is Yanni Gourde.
I love Yanni Gourde. He's a total hockey psycho.
Total winner. Also, obviously came from the Lightning. Like kind of like playoff pedigree for a fledgling team like the Kraken, and he's another one of those guys. He scores a little bit more than Duclair. Like he's not exactly like an Anthony Duclair in that way, because he actually can like get offensive chances. But he's another guy who just always makes the right move. Play.
He was, someone the Rangers were rumored about acquiring at one point, but he's he was like a cap casualty essentially, because he got an extension, ended up I guess winning the, what do you call, the bubble playoff.
Yes,
right.
The 2020 Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
right.
I don't know how much that counts, but still.
But I mean, it's also been amazing. It's also been awesome. It's a similar thing for the Panthers and the Kraken. Almost is like they took down sort of the top dog in their in the sense in their case, the reigning Stanley Cup champs, and now it's like this is house money now. We're still playing this well. We can continue to ride. We can continue to make this happen and win games because the Stars are good, but it's not they don't necessarily have a huge playoff pedigree themselves. They don't have a whole lot of guys besides maybe Pavelski who have made deep playoff runs, I'd say. And even Pavelski, it's always been with the Sharks who have, famously come up short a bunch of times despite being perennial playoff contenders until basically this year or last year's season. So this is a series ripe for the taking. If the Kraken beat the Stars,
boy.
Kraken Oilers would be a wild series, but so would Kraken Knights, honestly. Both of them would be kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree. That would be incredible.
And Leon Draisaitl just as casually scored.
That too.
Leon Draisaitl just casually has 8 goals in 2 games.
Good for him. I mean, honestly,
unbelievable that
I want the Oilers
him and
to take it
McDavid
home. I know
are on the same team.
and that somehow the team is still this inconsistent. But it just we're talking top 5 players in the NHL right now. You start with McDavid, of course, Tkachuk, Draisaitl. I mean, that might be the top 3 players in the NHL right now.
Absolutely.
I mean, not really. I would say McKinnon and
McKinnon.
McCarr, that could round out the top 5 there. But I'm taking Austin Matthews out right now. I really am.
He's got him and Marner really have to step it. I mean, it's 3-0, so it might be over. But I mean, if the Leafs want a shot, they have to play better.
Yeah, I mean, and then
they have to not roll over to the pressure.
Yeah,
that the Panthers are putting on them.
And this is the Pasternak, but we could have that conversation another day.
Oh, Pasta, yeah, it's true. It's a good point.
Yeah. Let's touch on this here because I have intimate knowledge of this story. Well, maybe not, but it's my fandom. So the Rangers, after they blew a 2-game lead that they got on the road against the New Jersey Devils, have fired their head coach, Gerard Gallant. And I'm in favor of this move because Gerard Gallant is a veterans guy. He doesn't really seem to have a very hands-on approach. He wants players to feel free to do their own thing and showcase their skill set. So that was beneficial for a little bit, for a while. But you get into the playoffs and there's a ton of tape on, say, a player like Artemi Panarin, on a guy like Adam Fox, the kind of quick passes he likes to make, on
Tarasenko,
Kane. But even the kid line was neutralized too, and that was supposedly the shot in the arm because that being their third line is a big mismatch. But that in and of itself was a bit of a coaching issue for Gallant because Kakko should have been playing on the top line throughout the season as the only true right wing that they had on the team before they traded for Tarasenko and then for Kane. Kakko, for his development, should be playing on the top line with Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. And the analytics, the eye test, all showed it. That was working. But Gallant hit a little bit of adversity, and he put the kid line back together, which makes sense. I get it in a vacuum, but it was what was easiest as opposed to what needed to happen for the development of these guys. And Gallant, just his hands-off approach, it was wearing thin. This is his 3rd stop where players have been getting sick of it and wanting somebody that they could back and believe in a leadership type role. And I think in the modern NHL, that necessitates an offensive system, a real offensive system, which isn't just hands off, do your thing, but a guy that understands the analytic sides of things, where to put guys on the ice, positionless hockey to get them in the best situation possible. His only adjustments on the power play was like, who's going to put Zibanejad over in this circle or in the bumper?
Right.
Like, the game of hockey is a little bit more advanced, and Gallant might not be on the right side of things right now. Like, the Kraken are an analytics-based team. Of the remaining playoff teams, they by far have the least talent, in my opinion.
Yeah, no,
less talent than the Oilers,
totally.
then the Knights, then the Stars. Less talent than the Devils, then the Panthers. I mean, again, like they crept into the playoffs, but they still have Kachuk and Barkov and Bobrovsky and all those guys.
Even Aaron Ekblad, like
Ekblad too.
Like the
And then I'm missing another team that and the Devils,
Knights,
and no, but God damn it. Oh, the Hurricanes.
Stars,
they have less talent than the Hurricanes too.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
But the Hurricanes are a defensive team.
Right.
But they have an incredible system. You could the Kraken have a very good offensive analytics-based system, and that is what the Rangers are missing here. Like, what was the Rangers' identity under Gerard Gallant?
Big guys go boom.
Sort of. But was it though? Like, okay, Kreider's a big guy. Trouba, yeah. But then it's Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad and skill.
Yeah. It's interesting though because
it's not speed, it's skill. But like
skill, probably skill and size, sort of like. But also, as you said, but it's sort of all of that stuff is also sort of siloed, like in the sense that there wasn't a lot of interplay between those strengths. Like, everyone sort of, like you said, everyone was kind of slotted into their role and didn't really play outside of it. When, like, for example, with the Devils series, as we were talking about, there probably at some point, because of the speed with which the Devils were playing and with the kind of aggression that the Devils were playing, there sort of needed, I think, to be a little bit of a response in kind in that regard.
Yeah.
And Gallant, I think his attitude or his idea, which I think sort of is how it seemed in the series, was like, let's do what we do. Let's do what we know how to do. Keep trying to slow it down a little bit. Keep trying to use our size. Keep kind of trying to play more defensive-minded hockey, and it didn't work. Like, it wasn't enough. The defensive-minded hockey wasn't stifling enough to stop or to halt the Devils' speed.
Yeah, and it there were not sufficient adjustments. There's a lot of rumors that Chris Drury, the general manager of the Rangers, has been eyeing the Wolfpack, which is the AHL affiliate for the Rangers, their head coach Chris Knobloch, for a long period of time to get promoted to be the guy for the Rangers. The problem is like, right now there's just a lot of voices in the room in New York Rangers land, and one of them is Chris Drury, obviously. The other one, the biggest voice, is James Dolan, and his presence needs to be fleshed out, right? I'm sorry, I'm like totally blanking on the other point that I wanted to make here. But yeah, it's just I really hope that they don't go after Quenneville. Who?
Oh my God, no!
That was a rumor, but apparently that got squashed pretty quickly.
We have to stop rehabbing these people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think a change was necessary, but it is a bit of a frustrating thing to watch, because I don't think that the Rangers front office is constructed in a way that that is conducive to an analytics-based approach. Can you filibuster for a sec? I'm trying to look something up.
Yeah.
But yeah, what was your observations?
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting. It's interesting to think about the analytics side of the conversation, because obviously, I think what happens sort of is that I always find it interesting how those types of effects, almost like there was sabermetrics, so-called, in the MLB first, and then that became so-called analytics, and then it every kind of leagues then flew downstream from that.
Yes.
Like analytics as being like
I remembered what I needed to say. Sorry.
No, go ahead. But so I would just think it's interesting. Like hockey, I mean, I imagine is kind of in the has sort of been in the backseat of that. Now I think it's becoming more important now that we're seeing success from the Kraken and the Panthers
Yeah.
to sort of highlight that a little bit more, maximize that a little bit more.
Well, this is the problem, is that since the Rangers made changes and ended up making Drury the general manager and John Davidson left, and the Rangers just moved on to a different God, I don't know why my words are escaping me right now. God damn it. But since the Rangers kind of rebuilt since they lost in the Stanley Cup Finals and they kept trying, it was reported that Glenn Sather, who was the longtime like whisperer into the ear of James Dolan, because Dolan doesn't feel like he has the same hockey sense as he does for the NBA, which is hilarious that he thinks he has a good basketball mind. He was on the outs, but now he's back, and he's a very old school hockey guy. And so I'm hopeful that the Rangers understand that they need to modernize their approach. And it's not Artemi Panarin's fault in the same way that like the New York Post splashes headlines about him.
Right.
He didn't do anything in the playoffs. It's the job of the coach to maximize these guys. And that hasn't been happening under Gerard Gallant.
And the thing is in the postseason. It is hard. Sure, when your team in the four losses, two of those games are shutouts, and they basically scored 2 goals over 4 losses in that playoff series. Yeah, like you obviously of course wonder how that much talent could be rendered sort of punchless against a team that's more speed focused than strength focused. But at the same time, that's not only on them when the scheme seems almost tepid and stagnant.
Exactly.
When the actual structure of the team's play does not seem to be benefiting anybody on the ice.
Right.
So I think, of course, there's some, obviously these guys, none of them played the way that they wanted to necessarily in those losses, but like Gallant can't go blameless as a result. It's not Panarin's fault that the entire team didn't look the way that they should have.
Yeah. 100%.
So hopefully, that there'll be I'm hopeful that the hiring will be inspired and that that next person can get the most out of this team, because there's a lot of talent on this team. I just think identity is so important for a hockey team, and they just need to find that and really lean into it, I think. Because I think they were almost, as you said, not only sort of identity-less, but also sort of struggling to find what would be prioritized over the other in terms of characteristics of the team.
Absolutely. All right, guys, gonna read some IMs, and then we're gonna get out of here. I'm sorry about that, and I will not be in next week. I will be out.
Oh my god.
But maybe I'll put up some video and like film a reaction or something on the channel in the meantime. But
do a reaction to a reaction.
A reaction to reaction. Yeah, exactly. Tater Tot said, "What's going on with the Leafs sounds similar to the 2015 Cup. Surprise year, won a wild card, beat the Cards in the playoff series for the first time in several years, and then crap the bed against your New York Mets." I remember that series. Antifa Lockhart, ESVN would rather blow up the stream than take a call. No, I'm just tired, guys.
We'll take calls next week or the week after,
Yeah.
or when Emma has returned from her travels.
El Canipchion, Emma, personally, I'm not convinced that the under no circumstances report was wording that came from the Grizzlies front office's side. I think that it's in Dillon Brooks' best interest for somebody in his camp to acknowledge the writing on the wall in anticipation of receiving a new multi-year contract from a team for his strong to elite defense, acknowledging that there will be a clean break so other teams can consider how to create cap space to sign him ahead of free agency. I don't agree. I do not agree. You could just say we will not be re-signing Dillon Brooks, not under.
Or like they've parted ways. Like the teams have done that before. I mean, it's happened with like Russell Westbrook, or like, guys get waived after trades, and there's not like we're absolutely not signing like
right
Trey Lyles, for example. Like it just doesn't happen like that.
Lefty longshoreman, Kraken in 6. El Canipchion, Suns are a backward-ass, dated kind of NBA offense, but at least now they're upping the pace. Either Chris Paul needs to modernize his game to push the pace, or play fewer minutes because he's too old to push the pace, and he's got to get better off ball, taking quicker shots off the catch. If that doesn't work then you start to ask whether to move on from him in the offseason, but I don't know how you get good value for him in a trade with his age and bloated contract. I don't think that you're going to be able to get much for him.
No, I think honestly they have to maximize what Chris Paul is good at, which is distribution and elbow jumpers, and him not being healthy is it's coming at a really poor time. But as you said, and if I was a betting man, I would think either this season or next season, just depending on what happens in the playoffs. I think he retires.
Kowalski said, "Great show, you two. I regret to inform you that there will be no conservative beer coming to the office. I had to get a new debit card, which canceled the purchase, and I don't feel like it's even culturally relevant anymore."
No, no freedom beer.
Sad.
Not a 30. We're not gonna get a $30 six-pack. That's a shame.
Majority Report wardrobe coordinator Bradley. What was the Showtime Lakers drama?
Oh yeah, sorry. I meant to say.
Is it HBO or is it Showtime?
Showtime. So Winning Time. The reason why Adam McKay, the producer, and he's a producer on Succession. With Will Ferrell. He's directed a bunch of
Anchorman.
Will Ferrell associated comedies. John C. Reilly, Will Ferrell, and Adam McKay for the longest time were really great friends. But Ferrell, at least as far as I know now, Ferrell and McKay don't talk anymore because McKay was producing Winning Time and cast John C. Reilly, who of course is one of their close friends, and I think Will Ferrell's best friend, as Jerry Buss, knowing that Ferrell, who is a fervent, lifelong Laker fan, his dream role was to play Jerry Buss.
What the hell?
And Ferrell did not find out from McKay. He found out from Reilly that Reilly got the role. So McKay literally in an interview with the Hollywood Reporter or some outlet like that literally was like, Will is really, really upset with me, and we haven't spoken in a few months. So they're still
I get why he's upset.
Yeah, they're still co-producers on Succession, but I don't even know if they've worked on anything together since. But he was so upset that his dream role, he wasn't even really considered. It was just given to John C. Reilly. So yeah, that was the stuff I was thinking about with that show.
Airbud writes in, woof, 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 bark. Thank you, Airbud.
Thank you.
And the final I am of the day. Tom Lofink. Happy Monday. Last weekend, in the last game of the regular season, the rugby team I support convincingly beat one of our rivals. Sadly, our playoff hopes went up in smoke months ago. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. In other news, Bradley's Harlequins missed the playoffs as well, although the Harlequins' Marcus Smith is trying to make his case to be an England men's team starter for the Rugby World Cup this year, but his efforts are being hampered by the existence of Saracens and England's captain Owen Farrell. LOL. Well, thank you for the update, Tom. Appreciate you all, guys. We will see you next Monday. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.